loss of communion with God, loss of these preternatural gifts, loss of infused knowledge, loss of God's attributes, loss of moral law, loss of the purpose for our existence, and loss of integrity. So does that surprise you that you have many bad people around? Because we lost integrity. We are born not having it. That's the problem. And we became mortals. We lost immortality because of the sin. We became mortals. And you know what happens? What are the effects of mortality? We grow old, we are subject to time, we die. The intention of God originally was, there was no death. There was no death. There was no time in paradise. There was no time. Adam and Eve did not grow old. They were destined not to die. Imagine that. The Mormons, somehow I see where the Mormons are coming from, but they're totally wrong, because that's what the Mormons are saying. The Mormons believe that eventually they will become gods, and that God was just a man like you and me before, and then at some point in time, I don't know what he did, he became God. It's so silly, sometimes it's funny. At some point, this man became God. And now, all believers, all Mormons, according to them, will eventually become God. That's why they have hundreds, millions of gods. And this much I can tell you. If the Mormon God had a beginning, you know what happens when you have a beginning? There will be an end. There will be an end. That means their God, small g, is subject to time. Because their God was not God originally. It's a certain point in time which they themselves could not explain to me. At a certain point in time, I don't know what that person did, but he became God. I want to know what that guy did. So he became a God. In fact, in the book of John, they inserted an article there. And the Word was God, right? John chapter 1. In the beginning. And the Word was God. You know what the Mormons did? And the Word was a God. To justify their belief, there are many gods. He's just one of many. They don't even believe that Jesus was God. Did you know that? It's amazing. They don't believe Jesus is God. And they believe they will eventually become God. Now, which brings us to the second one, judgment. We will just, in the interest of time, I'll just talk very briefly about the other three. We'll talk about judgment another time. When we die, we are subject to one particular judgment right away. You know that? Not our body, but our soul. This is the beauty of this judgment. For the first time, you will see your soul as God sees you at that time. That's what I meant whenever I say, God will not ask you this, God will not ask you that. What God will ask you is, how come you were not that because I made you. Let's say, I made you to be a priest. How come you didn't become a priest? I made you to become a saint. How come you didn't become a saint? And you will see yourself as God sees you. Remember, there are no secrets to God. No secrets. We're totally transparent to God. God even sees our ambitions, our plans. He sees them. He sees everything. When we die, we face the judgment seat for our particular judgment. Some writings of the church says we either go to heaven or to hell. But there's a holding place. It's called Sheol. Sheol is the place for the dead. That's where Jesus descended down to on Good Saturday. For those who have gone before him, before Jesus' time. Jesus accorded them the opportunity to believe in him. So he descended down to Sheol, which was translated into hell in the old translations. But that's not the hell where Satan lives. Because Satan had been condemned throughout eternity. So, Jesus descended down to Sheol to proclaim the good news to those who came before him. Those who died before him. Understand? So now, there's no more exception. Before and after Jesus, there's no exception. Everybody hears the good news. Now it's up to you and to me to believe that. And to do penance to keep this. Remember, Adam and Eve had all these, but they lost them. But Jesus, see, after the fall, the gates of heaven had been closed and locked, shut, closed. No one could go to heaven until Jesus came. Through his passion and death and resurrection, Jesus earned and merited everything for us. We have been redeemed. That's why we call Jesus our Redeemer. Redeemer means he redeemed us from eternal damnation. Now, the gates of heaven have been opened again. Now it's possible for you and for me to go to heaven again. After Jesus. Can we have sanctifying grace? Yes. Can we have communion with God? Sure, yes. Can we have these gifts? If we allow him, yes. All we have to do is allow him to infuse this knowledge on us. Then we can get all this. Can we have integrity? Integrity is something that you have to work over and over and over again. It's not something that, I got integrity, I can sleep forever. No. Why? Number one, we are subject to time. Number two, we are still, we call concupiscence. We still have this concupiscence. We are still subject to committing sin. That's why we have to work out on our integrity all the time. We cannot just say to ourselves, oh, I have integrity now, that's it. Maybe you have integrity now, the next day you don't. Because human passion, human appetite can overcome our reason, our will. We call that you succumb to temptation. We can succumb to temptation. That's why we have to continuously work on our integrity. That's the reason why the church believes our salvation was, there's past salvation, there's present salvation, and their spiritual salvation. Remember the paper I gave? Past, present, future. That's what the Bible says. That's our faith. We have to continuously, and we cannot stop persevering, working for our integrity, to keep it that way. Because we can lose it anytime. Herod is a perfect example. Remember Herod? The problem with Herod is one of the things we talked about last week. The problem with Herod was he was more afraid of man than God. Think about it. He was so afraid of Herodias leaving him. He was so afraid of what people will say. But he's not afraid of what God thinks. That's exactly the opposite of one of the readings yesterday, last Sunday. Today's Thursday. Remember the readings, the Gospel, Mark 7, last Sunday? Nothing from the outside can defile you. It's what comes from within that defiles us. The readings, Mark 7 from last Sunday, the Gospel. It's not, the problem is, we're so concerned, we're so afraid about what the people will say. Right? Oh, no, I cannot be seen like this. No. You know, last weekend, we were 4 couples, we slept in Atlantic City. I think I don't go for this. And one of the couples, she would always have makeup on. For the first time, I saw her first thing in the morning. It was the first 4 o'clock in the morning I took my shower. I was ready. I was on the computer. I had my laptop with me. And I think she woke up around 6:10, 6:15. And I saw her for the first time without makeup. That's the real one. That's the real one. And immediately she rushed to one of the rooms and she got up with the makeup on again. What's the point here? We're so concerned about what our neighbors will say. Look at the stores. The female clothing is like lines and lines and lines and lines and lines and lines. Look at the male section. Tiny section of the side. Okay? Any store, I dare you, check it out. Why? Because we're less concerned about clothes. My only concern for clothes is it's clean. That's it. I don't care how I look like. But the women are different. And if you have seen them in that particular clothing, they don't want you to see them again in that same clothing. The wife of Prince William, they had a picture of her wearing the same clothes, 2 different events, different months, the same year. And they said, she must be for people. Because she's not living like royals. Queen Elizabeth, she will never wear the same clothes more than once. Royalty. Human royalty. Who cares about these things? Guess what? Herod was so concerned about what people will say. Herod was so afraid of the opinion of people. What about, let me tell you very directly what I am saying to you now. The only opinion that matters is God's. Not mine, not yours, not any man. You understand? What matters only is God's opinion. Do I need to say more? It's the bottom line. And that's the main message of last Sunday's gospel. I'm sorry, but I didn't hear it. It's not people's opinion, it's His opinion. That's what I mean. Maybe if the church finds out about the things that I preach, maybe they don't like me to give homily. Because I will give homily, I will say everything that the people need to hear, not they want to hear. Because one big problem is, homilies are so made light. 0 calorie, no trans fat, no carbs, no nothing. All 0. But what do people learn? Nothing. See? Not here. Don't be like Herod. Worry about what God will say. We just talked about that. When you face the throne of God, can I have my attorney with me? Your attorney will face his own judgment in time. You'll be alone. No mommy, no daddy. Alone. And you will see yourself as God sees you. Then you have no answer to the question. How come you didn't live how I made you to be? How come you didn't live like St. Anne? How come you didn't live like St. Francis? God didn't ask you that. Anthony, how come you didn't live as Anthony? I made you Anthony, how come you didn't live as Anthony as I made you? Whoops. That's why it's crucial that we know the purpose for our existence. Do you know? Remember the Baltimore Catechism? Of course, it's before my time, but I have an idea what the Baltimore Catechism says. We have been created in the image and likeness of God for the purpose of knowing God, loving God, and serving God, and spend our eternity with Him. That's what the Baltimore Catechism says. Of course, there's the modern catechism now. It still says the same thing, essentially. All right? Get your